Thanks for tuning in. This is Steve McGrath, and you're listening to my conversation this week with Super Bowl champion Selvish Capers. Now, Selvish won that Super Bowl as a member of the New York Giants under Coach Coughlin, and he came to New York from Washington, the team that drafted him in 2010. And Selvish took that Super Bowl winning season, the success he gained as an athlete going to West Virginia, being an all-conference player before going to the NFL, and then the CFL after that, and has found that success in the second part of his life post being an athlete. So we're going to talk about Athletes Forward. It's the foundation that he created, and he works to help high school students prepare for life after the game. So he is preemptively making sure that athletes have a plan at the most basic level to have success in their life when they're not on a field or on a court. So I'm going to let Selvish drop some knowledge on you as we talk about his playing days, the foundation, and ultimately what makes people successful. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Selvish Capers. All right, I am pleased to be joined by the man, Selvish Capers. Selvish, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited. Thank you for taking the time. What we were just talking about before we started here, I believe rookies are about to report to training camp within the next 2 or 3 days, give or take. No one knows anything. We don't know what's happening with the preseason. Obviously, the offseason program to this point has been a complete disaster for obvious reasons. If
Right.
you were to put that helmet back on right now, what would be going through your mind with everything up in the air?
Will I get sick? I think that would
a
probably be the
good place to
first thing.
start.
Right, I think that would probably be the first thing I'm thinking about. But I mean, it's kind of twofold, right? I'll be excited to see teammates and, to be around. I'll be in that environment again with teammates, staff, we can all catch up and kind of build that team bonding and get that experience all over again. But I guess on the other side, I got to think about, like I said, getting sick and, being in an environment where you're dealing with people that are coming from multiple, backgrounds and, being exposed to everyone and hoping that, no one has been around someone who may have been exposed. So it's a challenge for sure. Um, but overall, I mean, I think I would just be really excited and hopefully that can kind of, overcast all of the doubt that I may have. But yeah, so
Yeah, but in short, you're a human being. You're obviously going to
yeah.
think of these things. So, I mean, how do you think at the end of the day, if we actually get to the fall and there's a season, are we going to
hmm
see play take a little bit of a drop off because guys are just a little bit more concerned and just all these things that everyone now has to think about?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I think that would probably be something to think about if they had fans at the games. I don't foresee fans being a part of the games. So I think with the teams or with the guys just being around each other all the time, they'll just be in an environment that is pretty safe. So I don't think that's something that they would necessarily want to worry about. Now, I guess playing against across the line from someone else, in a different an opponent, that's a challenge. But overall, I think everybody will be okay. I don't think you'll see a drop off just because I mean it's a job. It's a job you have to come to every day. You got to perform and you got to play. If you don't play, you don't get paid. So that's another reality check that I think everybody has to think about as well.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, there's so much that's yet to be seen. There's guys in the NBA and NHL that were opting out of getting back into the bubble where they're gonna.
hmm
But so who's to say? The NFL doesn't even know with testing or anything else what they're gonna do. So I think a lot's gonna happen in the next, call it, 5 weeks or so.
Yeah, it's a whole lot to think about, man. That's you got 32 different teams, plus front office, plus the coaching staff, and that's just a lot to think about. And then the venues, I mean not the venues, but the stadiums that they're going to play in. It's a whole lot. So I mean, good luck to them. I'm glad I'm not a part of it right now, but I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I was even like a punter. They're not getting too close to anyone. But I mean, if you're an offensive line, you got hands on you every single play. So
Every
different
single
levels
play.
for different guys.
Exactly, exactly. So I mean,
Now,
I think the only time linemen really try not to touch someone is when it's cold outside. But I mean, I think this time would be an exception too. So we'll see.
definitely. But no, of course, you haven't been playing for a couple of years now. From what I can see, the Athletes Forward Foundation is something that you've spent at least the last couple of years on. And on top of that, Apartment List is where you're also working. So what's life like today, COVID stuff aside? How are you focusing your time and energy?
Yeah. So my time and energy now is literally, nose deep into both of those that you just brought up. So Athletes Forward, I can kind of talk to that first. I mean, that's my foundation that I have. It's more of a career development foundation for student athletes. It just preps them, for life after sports, for them to make that transition. So it helps with mental health, with how to build a resume, financial literacy, how to conduct themselves in a job interview, what to prep for, and just to also, have them interact and network with different people from different industries, professional industries. Learn how to build a network early. That way, when they do have to transition, they can just make that quick phone call and say, "Hey, I'm interested in being a part of this company. I'm interested in this particular job," and they can have a foot in the door. Um, but then also, just more importantly, the mental health aspect I think is very important. A lot of guys, after they're done, their playing days are over with, they try to make that transition, and they've been doing something, playing that sport all of their life. That's all they know for the most part. And when it's time to transition and jump into I guess, the real world of the workforce, it's a challenge just because they're behind, right? You got guys that may have played 6, 7, 8 years in the NFL, but in the workforce, they're fresh, they're entry level, and it's hard for them to get a job just because they're competing with, younger candidates who have current experience or who may have an MBA or graduate degree, and they can come in and hit the ground running. So just putting those guys in positions where they can kind of succeed initially, like coming straight out of sports, I think is key. Just because, I mean, I know a lot of guys who've struggled with the transition, and it's not fun. So if you can, you know, get the young athletes on board while they're young, I think it can benefit them for the long term.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just imagine. I mean, you would just certainly know better than I, being a
Hmm.
professional at something for years, and then all of a sudden you're a rookie again, and you're used
Right,
to playing at a high level, and now
right,
you're not even able to play at a high level. You're in a completely different game, whole new field.
exactly.
So,
Yeah,
are you
man.
working mostly with middle school, high school, college?
So right now it's middle school and college. I'm sorry, not middle school, high school and college. I think especially college, they're probably one of the biggest focuses we're trying to focus on now. For well, it was 2020, but we've kind of dialed back a little bit, and most of that stuff is virtual. But hands-on, I guess per se, we wanted to really focus on college for 2021. And still maintain our relationships with high schools. I think it's really important. High schools, it's really cool. We have two different types of programs. Um, High school is mainly to kind of help kids make that transition from high school to college, because that's a different animal as well. And I believe, you know, sports is a business, right? So they should have, some know-how, wherewithal to understand that college is a business and what they should expect going into it. And then from college, I'm sorry, from college to the professional world or the workforce. I mean, it's a challenge as well. Like you said, they'll be rookies again, and trying to adjust to that lifestyle is going to be totally different. So just prepping them early and prepping them for that transition while they can still make it as seamless as possible is pretty important.
Definitely. So, are you in like a certain geographic location, or are you all across the country?
Now, so right now I'm just in Louisiana. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. That was home, and I just started this about 2 years ago. So I felt like this would be a good place to kind of let the baby run and see how it works out. But yeah, definitely have plans on expansion. But I think once we kind of scale it out in Louisiana, it'll be something we're looking forward in the future to expanding on. It's further out.
Awesome. So,
Thanks, man.
you're also doing work with Apartment List, and it's by
Hmm.
no means the first job that you've had. Thinking about the different stops that you've had in your post football career, what is the
Right.
one thing that you wish you knew that someone maybe in your shoes could have told you, if the roles were reversed, the kids that you normally work with, what's the one piece of advice you wish you had?
Uh, man, to I guess how to do a resume. I know it
Step
sounds
one.
crazy. Yeah, step one. I think that's probably pretty key. Resume and having the right network, man. Because honestly, you get a lot of opportunities just by the people you know, right? Like they say,
Definitely.
your network is your net worth. And I think that's really important. You having those connections and people that can get your foot in the door is something that is priceless for the most part. Um, but yeah, and I mean, just I would think a resume is really important too, just because that's your first form of personal interaction per se, right? So when a recruiter is looking at your resume, they're envisioning what you look like, what you bring to the table, you know, what assets you may have, and how can you grow within the company, and how the company would be willing to work with you. So it's a plethora of things, but I think those are the biggest two. Um, because you got to work, you got to make money, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for someone, it requires you to work. So
All the time, every time. Now, I believe I have this right. Were you with the NFLPA, like former player services for a while?
yeah, I was. So and that was pretty cool, just because you got to deal with a bunch of guys who were in the situation that I'm explaining now, right? And also
Exactly.
more importantly, just needed to kind of know the benefits that the NFLPA provided. Because there are a lot of benefits that they do provide. The NFL does provide a lot of stuff as well. I think that that's very important to know, just because when I first came out, I didn't know. I was kind of ignorant to that, and I mean, there are a lot of things that I think they can do better at too. But overall, I mean, there are some services that a lot of guys can take advantage of, and I think can help with that full on transition.
Yeah, and that's why I bring it up. It feels like maybe you didn't know it at that time, but you've been building steam towards this. You go through the
Yeah.
transition yourself, then you help guys
Mhm.
go through the transition, and then now you're finding a way to preemptively help any athlete, maybe before they hit the professional level, to deal with how to separate yourself from sports.
Exactly. So it's pretty cool, man. It's I don't even think it was on purpose, but I'm glad it played out the way it played out for sure.
It from at 2020 looking back, it seems like it all lined up perfectly, even if
All right.
maybe you didn't know along the way. Um, but for us to have this conversation, though, everything you've gone through, if I had it right, you weren't exactly a football player to begin with, a little bit of a basketball guy.
Yeah. Oh, you really did your homework. Yeah. Yeah. So I started off basketball player. That was kind of like my heart and soul initially. Um, I didn't even want to touch a football. I didn't start playing football until I guess high school. Played on the so my high school it started at eighth grade, so I played on a freshman team in eighth grade in high school, and my freshman year played varsity in my high school. But with football is what I'm trying to say, I guess. But basketball was pretty much my first love. I did that from a young age up to I guess high school. Wasn't as successful on the basketball court in high school as I was on the football field. And I was a tight end, so it was a different position. But overall, I mean, I got a lot more exposure in the football field than I did on the basketball court. So, you know, I had to make a strategic and smart decision. So I decided to go with that scholarship. And it paid off, man, long term. Like looking back, it was a crazy decision to leave New Orleans to go all the way to West Virginia in the mountains. That's totally different type of scene.
Just a little
Um,
different, huh?
yeah, right. So it was definitely a shock for sure, but I will say that I think it was probably one of the best decisions that I made, ever. And I'm excited that it turned out the way it turned out for sure.
So I just want to talk a little bit more about your road to get to the NFL, because as you said, a tight end, but you get to West Virginia in your red shirt. The
Hmm.
next year, it's sort of, you're not playing as much as I'm sure you want to. So it's your
Hmm.
third year, going into your third year at the school, that you try out offensive line. Do you remember how that sort of comes about? How receptive were you to that idea?
Oh yeah, I've never forgotten. So literally, I was like you said. So my first 3 years, I didn't really. play much at tight end. And I was called into the office by the guy that recruited me, Calvin McGee. He was our running backs coach and office coordinator under Rich Rodriguez. And he called me into the office in the spring, right before spring started. And he was like, "Hey, Selvish, look, I wanted to let you know, I wanted you to hear from me first. We're going to go ahead and move you to offensive line." And I mean, I thought it was a joke, right? I was like, "You funny," but he was like, "No, I'm serious. Like, this is the move we want to make." And we had just gotten a new offensive line coach, Greg Fry. He had just came from Michigan, so he was excited about it. And he came into the office and told me he was excited. And the whole time, I'm just tuning him out, looking at Coach McGee. If I was a cartoon character, you would see the steam just coming from my ears, right? So it was crazy, but I had like this whole yelling match with Coach McGee, and he was just sitting there quiet and just silent and like, "Okay, let me know when you're finished." And I, I just so I kind of gave him an ultimatum, right? I was like, "Look, since you want to do this to me, I'm going to give you 2 weeks." I said, "I'll give you 2 weeks, and after this 2 weeks is up, if I don't like it and I don't feel like it's working out, I'm going to go back to tight end." He was like, "Fair enough." So he went along with it, and started spring training, and it didn't go well at first. I will say that it did not go well at all. But overall, I started to see the potential, and ultimately I was on the field playing, right, instead of on the sideline. So I was like, okay, they say in football, the more you can do, right? And in this case, the more I can do. I was able to switch positions, and built a career out of it. So it worked out. And I know, like, the day I got drafted by the Redskins, I called Coach McGee and I was just like, "Hey, man, I know y'all gave you a whole bunch of flack," because he wasn't even at West Virginia at the time. I think he was at Michigan or had just moved to Arizona, one of the two. I think Michigan. But I let him know. I was like, "Hey, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for, trusting in me to, to get it done." And ultimately it paid off. So thanks. I made sure I did that. But yeah, man, it was a crazy transition.
And it's awesome that you called coach and thanked him. I'm sure that, he really appreciated that. But
Yeah.
so as your personal success begins to take off now, the team success, I mean, '07, is peak Mountaineer time. I mean,
Hmm.
what Coach Rich Rod is able to do. And I think you guys get or finished at number 6 in the country. You see that when a coach gets players to buy in and the team success rises, well,
Hmm.
now his personal success has risen to a point where he can now take the job at Michigan. Do
Hmm.
you remember how that news broke and what that did to you guys? And I mean, you still had success after that. You were able, Steve Slayton, Pat White. I mean, it was a wagon, but how did that just shake the locker room?
Yeah. It was crazy, man. So I don't know if you remember, but the year before Coach Rodriguez left West Virginia, he was also being looked at by Alabama. And it was him and Nick Saban, right? Ultimately, he kind of turned down a job, and Nick Saban got the job at Alabama. So, a part of some of the guys, talking to some of the guys, part of us felt like he kind of regretted that decision. And when the next opportunity presented itself, he was like, "Okay, hey, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take it." Right. Um, and we took that hard because it was right before our bowl game.
Right.
So that year, the year he left was the year we should have been in the national championship, but we lost our last game to our rival, Pittsburgh. At the time, we were in the Big East. It was the backyard brawl, and it was tough. It was a tough pill to swallow, and I think that just gave him enough motivation to be like, "Okay, look, I got as close as I can probably get." And I think that was just kind of somewhat of his insecurity at that point in time. I don't know for sure, but he ultimately told us when we were in a meeting prepping to go to Arizona to play Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, and he told us right before we left, "Hey, just wanted to let you guys know that I am leaving. I am going to Michigan." And I mean, the room, everybody's mouth and eyes, eyes got big, the jaw dropped, right? We were like, "Wait, what?" Because we heard, the chatter, because there was just rumors going around, but we weren't sure, and he never brought the conversation up. And we literally found out, I think, the same day it was somewhat announced, and a lot of people, we were all disappointed. I mean, it was tough, you know. I think the one thing I will say about college sports, like I said, it is a business, and that's one of the things I did learn while being in college, or I guess at an earlier stage, what a lot of guys do before they go to the NFL, is that those players go to those universities because they've bought in to what that coach is selling or that coach is offering, right? So when that player comes in, they're committed. They're like, okay, I trust the process. I'm gonna go ahead and push through this. I know you may be killing me. I know it may be hot outside. I know I'm sweating my butt off. I know I'm banging my body against this guy, every single play. But I'm gonna do it because I believe in what you're selling. And I think we all somewhat felt portrayed that, that he kind of may have given up, or he decided to do what he thought was best for his family. I mean, who knows? But ultimately, we somewhat felt betrayed just because we committed to the process, and after that big old loss, we just kind of felt as if though he gave up on the process, right? Um, so it was a lot of emotions roaming in that building, but ultimately, man, we decided to press on. We got Coach Bill Stewart. Rest in peace to him. He passed away a few years ago. But we went to the Fiesta Bowl and we smashed Oklahoma, right? And I think, that was huge, for us, just because, we at the time before the Pittsburgh game, we were ranked number 3 in the country. It was us and it was Missouri who was expected to play in the championship. Missouri had lost to Oklahoma, and we lost Pittsburgh. So LSU and Ohio State took our place, and LSU won. And I'm from New Orleans, and I just hate that LSU won. But yeah, man. So it was tough for everyone, and ultimately, we had to suck it up and move forward. Went to the BCS Bowl and took it out on Oklahoma.
And I mean, there's so much that I'd like to get into there, but in the
Mm-hmm.
interest of time, I want to just jump forward a little bit to your NFL days. So
Awesome.
you go through a little bit of a gauntlet there, from dealing with a coaching change, being able to overcome adversity. When you get to the Redskins, it's Coach Shanahan's first year. They
Mm-hmm.
draft you, so I'm sure you're riding that high. But ultimately, how do you deal with only being on the practice squad?
Mm-hmm.
And on the same part, like, you're now playing with Trent Williams, Jamal Brown. I mean, you have 2 legit offensive tackles that you can learn from, because you also are getting better too. You've only been playing tackle for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of surreal for one just to be drafted. I mean, so ultimately I think so. If there are like players who are aspiring to be NFL athletes, I would tell them, like, if you expect them to get drafted, just know that it would be the most miserable time of your life, just because it was so stressful, man. Yeah, it was very stressful because you hear all this hoopla about how, okay, you may be drafted here, you may be drafted here, and this performance can mess that up. This test can mess that up at the combine. Like, it's a lot of factors that come into play, but it will be a stressful time, right? Um, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, still coming off that high of getting drafted. I thought that was awesome. Got to the Redskins facilities, met teammates, met coaches, met other staff members. It was great. It was awesome, and met my class that I came in with, was pretty cool too. And yeah, it was a great vibe, man. I think with Shanahan too, with him having the background he had of winning, the 3 Super Bowls at the time with the Broncos, and Elway being his quarterback, and being under a coach who pretty much is Hall of Famer, right? Um, that was awesome. That's kind of like a surreal dream for incoming rookie, right? And yeah, it was awesome. So just meeting everybody and kind of getting affiliated with everyone, and then also understanding that this is the NFL, it's a business, and these are grown men that I'm going to be playing against, who have to feed their families. It was a lot to take in, and just how the game moves so much faster than what college does, right? So it's a lot of different factors, but yeah, it was a great learning experience and a great, I guess, snap into reality.
So yeah, I mean, multiple times now you've mentioned the business side of it, whether it's college or the NFL. How did you
Hmm.
deal with September of what would be your second year, having the
Hmm.
Redskins say, "Hey, see you later"? But how do you deal with that? And ultimately, we know, of course, you make it to the Giants, but you have like a what, like a 1 month give or take span where you're like, "Am I going to play again? What's going on? What do I do here?" How do you deal with all that?
That was tough too. Getting let go. I think that was the first time I was ever cut. Right. So that was a big reality check too. It was a lot to take in, man. Somebody telling you that you're no good at something that you've been prepping for your whole life. It's tough to take in. It's a tough pill to swallow. And you seeing guys that you came in with, or guys that you formed relationships with, and them still being a part of that team, and you all got to go your own separate ways. You don't know if the connection's going to stay the same. You don't know if you're going to keep in contact with them. You don't know where your future's headed. You know where you're going to go. Is the team going to be good? Is anybody going to pick me up at all? Is my career done? There's a lot of things roaming around in your head, but ultimately, yeah, I got the opportunity to go to the Giants, and I mean, I will say when I got to the Giants, first thing I did was compare the two organizations, right? And just off the bat,
Only natural. You have to.
yeah, right. So just off the bat, just off the look, I was like, okay, I kind of got an upgrade, right? The facilities are nicer. I mean, just to be, fully transparent. One of the things I think I spoke about a lot when I was in DC, I felt that my college facilities, had a little bit more love put into them versus, what it was in DC. And then, going back to the Giants, going to the Giants, I was like, okay, well, yeah, this is probably what it's supposed to be like in a professional rank. So that was pretty cool. And like I said, I got to, meet Eli Manning and, Justin Tuck and, you know, I mean, just all these big names that, won Super Bowls, right? So it was just, it was great, man. Like you felt like you were on a winning organization. And, I was lucky to get a Super Bowl right after that. So, I mean, that was great.
Yeah, no one can ever take that from you. You're part of a Super Bowl winning team, and to get that, it almost feels like you fell into it. Like, okay, I'll sign with this
Hmm.
team. Little do you know they're about to take off.
Right.
So, how much does practicing against the Justin Tuck? But it's not just him. The Giants in that time dominated with their defensive line. So I'm sure practice was awful. If you had to block
Hmm.
JPP, OC, Justin
Yep.
Tuck, and even their interior guys there. I mean, Chris Canty's a monster.
Oh,
How much did that make you better just going up against them every day?
I mean, it was great, man. It was a challenge for sure, but I will say, like, I felt like just getting a rep. So one thing, like in practice squad, you get a lot of reps, right? Um, but I will say the benefit to that is that you're getting those reps against guys who are actually playing in those games, who are the best of the best, who've had the experience and who stand out in the league, right? So like you said, going against OC, going against Justin, going against JPP, Chris Canty, man, gave me the biggest stinger in my neck ever, forever, man. But it was, I mean, just going against those guys on a regular basis, it definitely made you better as a player. And at the same time, I'm hoping that I made them better, right? Because that's definitely the foundation of the practice squad. So it was cool. It was a good opportunity. It was an awesome experience. Um, had good coaches. Playing for Tom Coughlin was awesome. He was definitely a guy who knows what he wants and how he wants it. And he expects you to abide by that. And he expects you to be accountable and reliable. But um, he wasn't a tough guy to play for at all. He definitely was, because I've heard a bunch of stories prior to going to New York. And, I will say he transitioned with time. He calmed down with time. He rolled with the punches. And, yeah, he was able to adapt with team members.
So you you've already painted right there a pretty good picture of what went into him being able to have success?
Hmm.
Not just getting that Super Bowl, but I mean, obviously he won multiple there, year in and year out, a competitive team. You were there for a few years, so can you put your finger on what made that run special? What was going on in the locker room, or something in particular about how Coach Coughlin just approached his job and getting everyone on the same page?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I think it was the buy-in. They had everybody in there believing that, you know, we all are in this together. Like we all play a part and we all have a role. Whether you were a starter, whether you were a guy backup, whether you were practice squad, everybody had the belief that, they played a role and their role was vital to the success of the team. And I mean, it does help that we had like a lot of key guys that were just awesome players. But those players aren't individuals; they have to play together as a team. So I mean, just kind of go back to that buy-in. I think that was pretty key. And Coach Coughlin just doing a good job of keeping everybody on the same page, making sure everybody was rested, making sure everybody felt as if though if they had injuries, they were taken care of. Making sure that everyone was committed to going to meetings, the film, doing the extra work that was needed to be successful, whether that be weight training, whether that be just whatever, eating healthy. Like everybody was on the same page that year, and it just worked out. Because it was crazy because the season kind of started slow, but we picked it up in the
Right.
end.
Um, Now, I have to ask. So you already said that as a practice squad player, you're hoping you're making the other guys better. You
Hmm.
grind away with the Redskins. You grind away with the Giants.
Hmm.
Towards the end of your second year there, though, you
Hmm.
finally are on the field, playing on Sundays. What did it feel like to be like, I finally now get my chance to go out there on a Sunday?
It felt great, man. It felt rewarding. Like I was like, this is what I worked for. This is what I, this is what all of the, you know, tears and the injuries and the sweat and all that was for, to come out here and, be a part of that crowd. And, well, I'm sorry, part of this team and, get all of the motivation and hype from the crowd. And yeah, man, that grass looks so much greener on Sundays, man. It's definitely totally worth it. And just, an experience that, you only dream of as a player. So it was great.
Now, from that high, though, unfortunately, your time with the Giants, I believe, ends in 2013.
Hmm.
How do you navigate that? Because ultimately, you do go into the CFL. You get a chance to hook up with Noel Devine again, a couple Mountaineers playing together up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
How did you just navigate wanting to ultimately go to the CFL, and then how did you decide? Okay, now it's time to hang it up.
Yeah. So when I got released from the Giants, it sucked, especially because I mean I got injured in the preseason, so that was just the way I didn't see my career going. Um, and I guess I just couldn't heal in time. Man, I had a lot of interest from other teams, but I mean honestly, I just couldn't heal in time, and the options that I had on the table initially were just kind of diminishing. So the CFL called. They offered me an opportunity to come out there and just ultimately, you know, get some film that way I can prep and to come back to the NFL. Um, it was cool. It was good just because it allowed me to kind of keep doing what I loved, but at the same time, it also was tough. Another adjustment I had to make just because I'm in a different country and it's still football, but it's still different rules, um, different teammates, different expectations, different coaches. So that was a challenge just because things are different in Canada than what they are in the NFL. Um, for one, the salaries. I think that was probably the biggest um, thing. But ultimately, I mean, it was great because I still had great relationships there in Canada. Built a lot of relationships with guys that I still talk to today. Um, and yeah, man, it was awesome. It was cool to actually play abroad. I've never gotten an opportunity to kind of live abroad and live in a different country and experience different people from that country and what it's like to live there. So that was pretty cool too.
Nice. Well, you know, deciding to actually hang it up, though,
Hmm.
how tough was that? So I'm sure it's like 2015, 2016. When are you like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm at the end.
Yeah, that was so when I hung it up, that was part of me making that decision, and I think it was also partly my wife making that decision. Uh, I will say, so from my wife's point of view, she's been with me for the long haul, and she was like, okay, well, look, you know, we don't know what's going to happen with your career. And at the time, I wasn't really getting any buzz from the NFL to go back, and I wasn't really excited to stay in Canada. So she was like, okay, well, look, this is kind of the idea. Like, we can go, you can call it quits, and I can start my career, which she had the right to. She's an attorney, so she got barred and put in all that work and all that time to do that, and wanted to kind of reap the benefits of that. And I was kind of slowing that down just because we didn't want to be apart from each other, right? We were actually newlyweds at the time, so she was just going through it for me, which I appreciated deeply. Um, so that was part of it, and I guess my part was just the fact that I felt at a certain point when I got to the CFL, after a certain point, I just felt like I wasn't getting fulfilled anymore by the sport. Um, I don't know if it was just the business side of me just falling out of love with the sport or whatever it may be, but I just didn't have the same love. Like, I remember one day going out to practice, I'm just like, why am I here? Like, I felt like I was forcing it. And when that happens, I feel like you just need to let it go. You know, don't do something you're not in love with. I was definitely put in a position. So a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do something that they love, right? I was granted that opportunity, and I wasn't going to, take advantage of that opportunity by doing something that I didn't really love it anymore. I felt like I was doing a disservice to the game, and I would be doing a disservice to my teammates. So ultimately, I just decided, okay, well, cool. I'll just hang it up. Now I just got to figure out this transition phase. What do I do next? And I think it was easier to just say goodbye, but even harder to figure out what to do next. So when I figured that out, I mean, it was kind of smooth sailing from there.
Yeah, and as we talked about at the beginning, how that leads the taking these different jobs and being able to be in a
Yeah,
position now where you have your own foundation, where you can help guys learn what that process is going to be before they even have a chance to be confused. Give them the
for sure.
information and upfront.
For sure. I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah,
Well,
man.
Selvish, as we wrap this up, I just have one last thing for you. It's called the Gauntlet. It's just a quick hitter question segment. I need your knee-jerk answer, man. What's most important in winning? Is it having the number one offense or the number one defense?
Oh, man. So I'm an offensive guy, right? But I will say having a defense, it definitely wins championships, man.
You
Sure.
watched it firsthand. You
Yeah.
would know.
Right.
Now,
Definitely. Yeah.
did you have a pregame ritual that you stuck to?
Uh, yeah, I did. So I had the same playlist that I listened to. It was just three songs. I listened to three songs before every game, and I would go out and I would literally work. So I did all my workouts between the 10 and 20-yard line. Nothing else on the left side of the field on our sideline. So that was pretty much all I did, and that was it.
What are the songs though?
I knew you were gonna ask me that. Uh, so the songs were what's Eminem's song? Uh,
There's a lot of
man,
them. It's not giving
oh,
me a
it's
whole lot to
it's
go on.
7 Mile.
Oh, Lose Yourself?
Yeah, Lose Yourself is one of my songs. And then it was two songs off of Lil Wayne's um, mixtape CD. Uh, shucks, Money on My Mind and I'm Me by Lil Wayne. So yeah, those are the three songs that I literally played every single game.
Love it. Now, was there ever one player or one coach you just wish you would have had a chance to play with?
Uh, I don't know, man. I played with some pretty legendary coaches, I feel like, but it would have been good to probably play with like a Bill Parcells. I think that would have been kind of awesome. I kind of liked his vibe. He was one of those. He reminded me of a Tom Coughlin to an extent, but yeah, I think Bill Parcells would have been a good person to play with, and if I had time back in the day. Yeah.
Now, and I never explicitly asked, but from Coughlin, Shanahan, Rich Rod, Coach Stewart, I mean, were you able to kind of pinpoint different things that would allow you to sort of take that and help you find success outside of football? Did you see like what made successful players or successful coaches get them to that level that you were able to take?
Yeah. So with Coughlin, I think it was just the accountability and the integrity piece. He was one of those people who like, hey, I'm gonna put you out there, but I'm expecting you to perform. And I think that kind of works within a workplace or even on in my life now. Like people depend on you. They expect you to come through, right? So will you actually put in the work to do so? And one of the things I still do today, I know with the Giants, Tom Coughlin, he set all the clocks in the building 5 minutes early. So all of our meetings, so if the meeting was at 8 o'clock, the meeting's actually at 7:55. So you had to be in that meeting at 7:55, right? So but I still do that today because he was like, hey, if you're 5 minutes late, you're early, or if you're on time, you're late, and if you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. So I mean, that kind of resonates with me today. I do my best to not miss any meetings. Pretty prompt for the most part. So yeah, that's definitely something I learned from him. Um, Rodriguez, I think just the cohesiveness, finding those people you gel with to make something work, right? I think that's what he did at West Virginia. We didn't necessarily have the greatest players in the world, but he put a system in place where we all can shine and we all can work together to shine. I think that was pretty awesome, and that's definitely something I learned from him. You surround yourself with the right people, you can be successful.
Got it. And last one, which I think dovetails very nicely into what you just said. What's the best piece of advice that you would give right now to a young student athlete?
Uh, to always make sure that you are prepared, right? Whether it be for sports, whether it be for life, make sure that you always have a backup plan. I think it's very important. You're gonna always need one because no plan is perfect and you will always need to make an adjustment. So just be prepared for that and just always have a backup plan.
There you go. Well, Selvish,
Thanks.
thank you so much for taking the time. And in closing, where can everyone follow you or keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, so if they want to follow me, they can follow me on Instagram. Twitter is the same. It's at Athletes Forward. Um, and also on my social media, it's my personal social media. It's at Selvish Capers 60, and that's for Instagram and Twitter as well. If it's Facebook, it's just Selvish Capers Jr.
There's so many platforms now that we all have to keep track of.
There's so many, man. So that's why I try to just keep the same names and just make it simple.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. You have a great one.